Hopefully that's it. Okay. So hopefully that will go to the county so they can, the Supervisor Hopkins team can monitor it at the afterwards. Let me just pull up the agenda and we should be good to go. Okay, well, I guess now is the time to call to order. Welcome to the Land Use Committee meeting. I'm going to go ahead and I guess we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I guess we don't have the flag now. So we will just say Pledge Allegiance. All right. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We don't have anybody to do the roll call, so I will note Marty, who is the chair of the Sonoma Coast MAC, has now joined the committee. So welcome, Marty.
Thank you.
So we now have 4 members of the committee. What that means in terms of members of the MAC who are not on the committee, unfortunately, you will not be able to ask questions because then we will veer into some questionable territory for Brown Act. So unfortunately, if you're on the Sonoma Coast MAC, if you're a full member of the MAC, you will not be able to ask questions. So I apologize for that. But the roll call. Okay, let's see. Beth.
Here.
Scott.
Here.
And Marty.
Hi, here.
And myself, Brian Leubitz, and I am here. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as it was put on the website?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. Well, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstention? Looks like it passes unanimously. Any statements of conflict of interest? Seeing none. I do not believe we have any correspondence. Consent calendar, we approval of January 2nd, 2022 minutes, which I believe we do not have at the moment. So I believe we will have to move on to that for our next meeting. We will take that up. We will hopefully approve 2 months minutes. For now, we will come to our public comment on matters not listed in the agenda. So the 3 items we have in the agenda are the bicycle event, the Fish Fest, and the revisions to Sonoma County's event permit system. If you have comment on something else that is related to our jurisdiction, which is land use, special events, and those items, please go ahead and raise your hand, and I will try to allow you to talk for 2 minutes. We do not have a timer, so please be considerate of everybody's time and try to keep your comments under 2 minutes. I don't have a timer, so I'm going to trust folks. But okay, Beth, did you have a question?
I can be a timer.
Okay, fantastic. Well, there we go. If you would like to have any public comment about anything that's not on our agenda, please raise your hand now. Okay, I see one hand, and I'm going to C. Madden. You should be able to unmute.
Okay, hi. Thank you for letting me talk. I was concerned and have talked to people who are also concerned about the Jenner headlands and the traffic in parking in pedestrians on Highway 1 on the weekends and holidays. It's pretty intense. Cars are parked all up and down the road because there's not enough parking in the parking lot. And then you've got people also walking on the sides of the road where there's no pedestrian way at all. There's no shoulder. And I was wondering if, maybe the Jenner Headlands can have people like sign up for weekend slots instead of all of the parking and people all over Highway 1. That's my question.
Okay, so because this item is not on our agenda, we cannot respond to it. That's correct, Scott, Marty, I believe that's right.
Yeah.
So what we will do for all the public comments is that all these comments will go to Supervisor Hopkins' office,
Mhm.
and we will pursue them from there. But we can't answer the questions as a committee right now.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
but
thank you.
for everybody, all these comments will be looked into, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anybody else for public comment? And if there are questions, my information, if you have questions for any member of the committee, our contact information is also available on the Sonoma Coast MAC website as well.
Mhm.
So seeing no other comments, I will believe we can go ahead and move on to the regular calendar items. So I'm going to promote Austin to a panelist. So Austin, you should be able to, hopefully, did that work?
Brian, you should look in the chat. Austin.
I see him there. Yeah.
Okay. You see his message?
Yes. So I saw
Okay.
his message and I see him in the chat, and I clicked on him and allowed him to. Okay. So Austin, I have allowed you to talk, so you should be able to unmute now. It's not letting me promote you to panelist though. So Austin, if you.
He's at the top of my panel. He needs to turn on his video and unmute himself, maybe.
Okay, Austin, you should be able to unmute. Okay. I keep clicking promote to panelist. It's not working. Technology. Okay, Austin, are you?
Hi,
There we go.
can you hear me? So you're probably confused because I'm a woman's voice, but my name is Austin. I am not Austin.
Oh,
Searching
okay.
for a message.
Okay.
So I apologize for the confusion. I'm putting my back into the audience.
Okay. All right.
Austin, you're seeking. You're looking for someone.
Okay. We are indeed looking for somebody else. So
Going
okay, so I do not see either Miguel or the Austin we are looking for. So why don't we go ahead and switch to Fish Fest? Does that sound okay? Since we can hopefully.
Does someone reach out to them by email?
Yeah, I just emailed them. So I wasn't aware that they did not receive a panelist link until just now. So I did email them, I want to say 10 minutes ago. If anybody had, I do have their cell phone number, but Beth, why don't you go ahead and start the
Fish Fest.
start?
Conversation about
Fish
Fish
Fest?
Fest. Can you
Yes.
bring Josh on?
Yes, I will add Josh. Turns out doing all these things at one time is.
Like
Doing
herding
great.
cat?
Yes. Okay, so there's Josh. So Josh,
Can
you
you
should be able
unmute
to.
Josh?
Hello,
Great.
Okay.
can you hear me?
Hi, Josh.
Hello.
So, tell us about Fish Fest.
Oh, hi, everybody. Don't know who's here, but my name is Josh Peruki, and I'm the president of the Bodega Bay Fishermen's Festival. I don't know how familiar everybody is with the festival, but it's an event that's hosted in Bodega Bay for the last, it'll be 49th year this year, and it's a fundraiser for 25 local nonprofits. It's put on by like 400 community volunteers, and all money raised gets distributed back into the community. School programs, public safety, environmental programs, community organizations, and that's such organizations. This year, it's been 2 years since our event has happened due to COVID, but this year with the county lifting the events ban, we are planning an event that's going to be April 30th and May 1st. It's held at the West Side Regional Park, it's County Park in Bodega Bay. So we're working on planning and hoping to have the event. Everything's going pretty smoothly, but there's a couple of hiccups. I don't know how far into that stuff you want me to get, Beth, but
I think we'll
that's kind of-
kind of not deal with the hiccups right now.
all right, so things are going fine. I mean, we're working on some things, and hopefully we have our event, which we are. We're promoting it. We're planning everything. We're working on permits, and we look forward to having the event again after 2 years of not having it. It's also important to the local community for the fishermen. Traditionally, the boats, commercial fishing boats, get blessed. They take their boats out into the bay, and it's generally the opening of commercial salmon season. So that's kind of the historical part of it, but it's turned into a community fundraiser. So if there's any other questions, I'm at work right now. I might have to step away, but I'm here to listen and answer any questions.
So Josh, that was wonderful. Thank you. I just want to let our public know what they can expect out of Fish Fest. It's part craft beer, it's part wine and cheese. There's food available. It's some of the food trucks. Is that correct? Do we know yet who's participating in the food trucks?
Yeah, so we're working on the food stuff, but yeah, there's like 60 to 80 craft vendors. There's 20 or 30 nonprofit booths. There's live music. We're gonna have 3 bands each day. We're working on booking the bands. There's food-wise, there'll be a variety of food, seafood, barbecue, chicken, tri-tip, that sort of stuff. Historically, we've done some food ourselves with our volunteers. We've always did the fish and chips, oysters, and clam chowder. This will be the first year that we're stepping away from the food and going to have all outside food vendors. Basically, just kind of less volunteers, less restrictions from the health department with COVID and stuff. So, but yeah, definitely a family-friendly event. There's a lot of stuff for the kids to do. There's a wooden boat challenge where teams sign up and get a set number of materials and get 3 hours to build a boat. And then there's like boat races out in the water, and the blessing of the fleet, the boat parade. And so it's 2 full days of community fun.
And the wooden boat challenge, you're not expected to bring your own materials. They are there for you, correct?
Correct. The teams sign up. They pay an entry fee, which is part of the fundraiser. We buy the materials. There's a set number of rules. Everybody gets the same materials. No power tools, all hand tools. You get 3 hours to build a boat. Most people build like a kayak or a canoe style boat, and they hope it doesn't sink. And the Coast Guard's out there to help us in the water, and it's a fun event.
Well, thank you very much. I think as a community, we're all very much looking forward to this. And hopefully our entire coast community will be able to join us this year and enjoy all of the benefits of Fish Fest. Thank you for helping us with this evening.
And then our website's bbfishfest.org if anybody wants any information. And we're also doing pre-sale tickets that are a little cheaper than the price of the gate. So feel free to promote the event on anyone's Facebook and stuff. We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Robin, did you want to talk about Fish Fest? I will allow you to. All right, Robin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hey, Josh, it's Robin Rutterow. I was wondering, since you're going to have so many less food booths, that's going to impact the number of volunteers, and all of the community groups are going to be trying to rally their volunteers to make an impact on their allocation requests. So I'm wondering if the Fish Fest committee has thought about what to do with all those extra volunteers.
Yeah, so there's definitely still room for volunteer activities, and we do encourage all groups that we support to provide us volunteers to make the event a success. We definitely need volunteers working the ticket gate. We need volunteers working in the beer and wine booths. We need volunteers working in the kids zone, the wooden boat challenge, picking up trash, parking cars. There's a variety of areas that we still need volunteers. So I know that the food was a popular spot to volunteer and interact with the public, but we hope we can fit the volunteers into other areas of the festival.
Great, thanks.
Okay, is there anybody else who has anything else about Fish Fest? Please raise your hand, and if not, okay. Well, thank you very much, Josh and Beth, for handling that. So we're gonna go back to the item that we skipped, which was the King Ridge Supreme bicycle event. So Austin, you should be able to unmute. I want to thank
Yeah,
you
hi there.
for coming on this meeting. I know it was sort of last minute and a lot of things are changing. So I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah,
for
my
this event.
apologies for being late. A little bit of a family emergency here. So I'm glad you were able to get onto your next agenda topic. I didn't hold you up.
Oh, no worries. No worries. No. It certainly there was a little bit of confusion with setting up the Zoom and everything. So I appreciate you joining us.
Of course.
All right. So just sort of a little bit background is we discussed this event without you guys present on the original, our MAC event, which is in January. Since that time, you guys have changed the route to, instead of going through Willow Creek, it goes up through past where you had it past Annapolis up towards Sea Ranch.
Correct. And then turns south, right, at Annapolis Road and Highway 1 and proceeds south, goes up Cruise Ranch Road up to Seaview, and then back down to Myers Grade and Highway 1 and finishes in Duncan Mills. So you're right. And based on your sort of partner, MAC, the south of you, their concerns about us running the event down Willow Creek and to issues that we were not made aware of from state parks, we heard those out and accordingly revised the route to remove that section. And so we're obviously very eager to hold the event. Part of the allure of this event and attraction for people is to see Highway 1 and to see the ocean and to be along the coast. So we were glad that we could at least continue with that, but did need to go north in order to do that, as well as avoid the Willow Creek watershed.
Okay, now does anybody on the committee have any questions for Austin?
I have some
Okay.
comments.
Scott, go ahead.
As an overview, this whole process has been set up to make events and communities fit better together. And I want to acknowledge the applicants for making the adjustments that came out of the Lower River MAC committee meeting. With the adjustment, it impacts my end of the county more significantly. And I just, in the interest of having a good event experience, I wanted to highlight a few things that are locally of particular concern so that you can be aware. One, we've had death during bike rides out here on steep downslope roads. And there are several of those on this route. And so just to be very, make your people very aware. I don't know, you know what to do, but that's a concern.
Yeah, ours too. I mean, no one likes to have bad crashes or fatalities at an event. Let me be sure, guarantee that. So,
none of the time sections had steep downhills.
no,
that was a remedy before. So next, and I mentioned it before, Cruise Ranch Road is a county road. It's perfect for rising to the ridge because it's built for a stagecoach, but it is dirt and it is largely one lane with two-way traffic. And the side of the road the cyclists be on has a ravine. So, and I understand you're going to put signage at each end for the locals to be aware of it prior, and that was a response to what we asked. Thank you. And so we'll see how it goes. It's going to be a tight fit. And so again, this is to make you aware of the things that we are concerned about.
Much appreciated, Scott. And I would just acknowledge that things that are a little bit different about this event from the events that have had fatalities is like an order of magnitude size smaller. We're talking no more than 400 total riders, whereas at some of these other events, the one in particular that had a fatality was like in the thousands of riders, multiple thousands of riders. And by the time riders reach cruise, it will be very separated. Not everyone will even be doing the longer route. And so the numbers of riders together at any one time will be in the handful. And so the people that sign up for our events tend to be very experienced riders as well, as opposed to just really newbies to the sport. And so, of course, the signage and having one thing that we've done this year that's rather new from last year is having a number of about a dozen marshals that will be riding in the groups, volunteering, and just keeping a check and eyes on things, and are not afraid to call people out and scold them. And we've started a policy of disqualifying people who are not abiding by the rules. And
So I got I'm almost done with my list here.
Okay, thank you.
We have, in the very center of our Timber Cove community, we have a 3-way intersection with 2 stop signs. And so one side is through traffic, and we have again, this is just a heads up. We have a history of bicycles blowing the stop sign.
All right there.
Okay. Okay. Then the success of the events, because I think that's the goal of this whole process, is to have successful community event experiences where the community is comfortable with it and the event is successful. And that's in your hands and in the participants' hands. And anyway, I really look forward to events really fitting well with our community, and that's what this process is all about. And we're very glad to have you participate. You're a critical part of this conversation. And as a guest, I expect that our audience will be good hosts as well.
Thank you for that. And we would be open to feedback from community members after the event. You know, if you saw things that were not positive, we need to know that. And so maybe there's a mechanism for getting some of that feedback.
We will offer that as a follow-up for the community.
So
that's how we hope to build consensus. Is alcohol being served?
No.
I noticed on the application it's not.
Well,
it looked like it was checked on the application.
Well, yeah, but no, it's not part of the event beforehand for sure. And at any of the rest stops, no. Some people will be staying at Cassini Ranch, and some participants may bring a cooler at the end in Duncan Mills, have some beers, but it's not part of us, right?
Yeah, and just as items 6 and 7 in the application, I think didn't get amended with the route change. That's just for your information. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott.
So just to piggyback off that a little bit, I know that, prior to COVID, you guys have run this particular ride, I think 3 times. Is that correct?
Well, this is actually the 25th year that Grasshopper Adventures has been putting on events around Northern California. Variations of this route have been permitted by the county, I believe 3 times prior. But in COVID, we didn't do anything. So 2019 was the most recent version of this event that was permitted.
Okay. And then was there anything that you guys, felt that you learned from those that you're bringing to this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I mentioned already the running of marshals during the event. So That was a big change. And this year we have a dozen volunteer marshals. The other was, as Scott mentioned, not having it be a point-to-point race, but instead having a couple sections that are primarily uphill or rolling as timed sections. And that way it decreases the competitive nature of the overall event. A lot of people just go out to do the ride and they want to see the route and know that there's a rest stop where they can fill their water bottles somewhere out there and be together. And then some people will push themselves in the 2-time sections. So both of those were really to try to calm people's behavior when they're on the bike and make it more of a bicycle ride feeling as opposed to a competitive race.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I think those are the two biggest.
Beth, do you have a comment?
I do. Thank you. First, I want to thank you for being here, Austin. I know that this isn't necessarily the fun part of what you're doing, and I'm grateful that you are here joining us this evening. I was a very active cyclist a while back, participated in rides, and I understand the desire to do these. And I also understand the conflicts with the coast and maintaining appropriate use of it and the whatnot. My questions for you are regarding the rest stops and traffic issues. So when I last looked at the application, there were 2 rest stops and potty break areas. Has that been changed?
No, that's what we're believing is appropriate. And those rest stops are pretty minimal in that there's basically a table set up with some water jugs on it and some, snacks that are provided for people to pick up. We would put a porta potty at each of the rest stops. And then we have a sweep rider as well as a vehicle that would be behind the last rider. And when that last rider goes through a rest stop, then they would break down the rest stop and ensure that the area immediately surrounding it is cleaner than when they found it. And in the past, we have picked up a fair amount of trash that clearly wasn't our own, beer bottles, sometimes a spare tire, things like that. And so that crew will leave the immediate area as clean as possible. And then the service provider for the porta potties will have to come pick that up. So that might be some number of hours later, or maybe the next morning. I don't know the contract yet. And so everyone's aware. I mean, we have not been issued a permit for this event from Sonoma County yet. And so we haven't contracted for some of these services yet until we know if we're even holding the event. And so it's still, some things are a little bit in limbo, but that would be our standard procedure for managing the rest stops. And those are off the road so that obviously it wouldn't be an impediment to car and go from there.
So I'll be frank, in my experience as not only a cyclist, but a property owner and a resident of the coast, 2 rest stops are woefully inadequate. You and I both know, Austin, what happens when a cyclist has to go, they have to go. And I'm relatively frank. A little bit of winking in the bushes is one thing, but it's the number 2 that gets us. That's where we have the problem with the toilet paper and the poop.
I don't think anyone in our crew is going to pull over to quote do a number 2. If they have to go, there's plenty of places along the route that do provide public restroom stops, and we inform our riders of where those are. So if they need to go to the bathroom outside of the rest stops, we encourage them to stop at those locations. Cazadero is a good one. Ingenner is another one. And so, I'm sorry if you've seen that from other cyclists, but it hasn't been my experience with riders in our events to do that.
Okay, well,
We'll
thank you.
definitely-
Just as long as your cyclists understand the health concerns. We have E. coli, cattle, sheep have E. coli, the 2 shall never meet is kind of the rule. And then because it can of sickness. Thank you for that. Now, my next concern is traffic. And the traffic is going to prevent other people wanting to enjoy the coast from getting to the coast. So how do you see the traffic going with the bicycle or the cyclists?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, our event is capped at 400 total riders. They are leaving in small groups. It isn't a mass start event. That's one of the reasons we did these 2 time sections. We're encouraging people to go out in no bigger groups of 12, to ride single file on the roads. There are no road closures. I think by the time it gets out to Kings Ridge and the sort of the farther stretches, that the groups will be so interspersed that most people won't know that there's a bike event going on. It wouldn't be that much different than a Sunday, a busy, nice weather Sunday, which you see a fair number of riders on Sonoma coastline and on county roads. I mean, it's a world-class destination and people know about it. So people are riding out there, but those folks, you know, I haven't been told through our communications and at the start line, all the rules and having marshals basically riding around, keeping an eye on people too, is another way that we're enforcing it. And we've already held one event this season up in Mendocino, and, you know, we disqualified a couple of people who we felt were not abiding by the rules that we had established. And so we're going to continue to be sort of hardball about that. And I hope that people hear that. And so I think you can just have to hold us to us and see how that works out. And I look forward to feedback if you feel like people, and you'll be able to notice our participants because they will have a plate on the front of their bike. And so anyone who's not behaving but doesn't have a plate, that's not our participant. But we can't be responsible for everyone that's riding out on the roads all the time.
So then does your organization have a stand on drafting?
Well, that's single file. I mean, that's our rule, is that people need to be single file on busy roads. Of course, and if you're passing someone, you have to go around them. Or if there's a long visibility and you can see that there's no traffic coming up, you know, you can ride side by side and be safely for some period of time, then go ahead and do that. So I'm not sure I fully understand your question about drafting.
Well, drafting isn't always directly behind the other cyclist. It frequently can be off. to one
Yeah,
side
if
or
there's
the
a
other.
side wind, and like what you're referring to is people being so-called echelon or like tailing.
Right.
And we do say, yes, we very clearly in the written rules say that that is not allowed on the open busy streets. So if it's side wind, I'm sorry, be single file.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
That's a very big deal. That's where
Yeah.
we have most of the problems with cyclists out on the coast. So thank you. And this one
Yeah.
last thing really quick. I have great concern about the impact on the first responders. And I wish you all a happy, healthy ride, upright, nobody crashes. But it takes one cyclist hitting a rock to take 10 other cyclists out sometimes in these events. Then all of our first responders are heading your way. Many of them volunteer. And I'm just wondering what you've done to include the first responders and their input into this event.
Yeah, well, we've done a couple things. First and foremost, part of the Sonoma County application is to fill out the fire response. So every fire department along the route is informed through that. They get the comment on it. But we're hoping to not need their services. And so part of that is we've contracted our own EMS service providers. And so there's 2 fully capable EMS staff on our event in their own vehicle. And so if someone goes down, they will show up first and then make the call as to whether or not 911 needs to be called. So our ultimate goal is to not call on local EMS support, and fully aware of the risk. So obviously being informed, letting everyone know along the route. We do have highway patrol contracted to work at key intersections to make sure people are aware. So they're there. And then lastly, this event is a fundraiser for the Volunteer Fire Foundation, which provides support to Sonoma County Fire Department. So our goal, to depending on registration numbers, if we hold the event, is to donate, I'd say in the $2,000 to $2,500 to local fire departments. Because we know they're volunteers and we want those services to be there at all times.
Thank you. So I understand you're going to be doing some donations and we're all grateful for that. But you're a for-profit organization, correct?
Yeah, it's Hopper Adventures is a business, but we do partner for each event with a nonprofit to give them a portion of the proceeds that we raise. So
how much are you anticipating raising?
I don't
event?
know. I mean, that's a good question. Like I said, we haven't even been permitted for the event yet.
Mhm.
And so we don't have the full cost associated with all the support, the materials for rest stops. And Miguel Crawford, who's the owner and is a full-time school teacher in Sebastopol, he's the one that does all the finances. I'm just helping with the permits side of it. So I don't know the ins and outs of the financial books.
You don't have a guess on what you've made on other recycling events similar to this?
It's not my wheelhouse, so to speak.
Okay.
That's not what I do or support him in. It's not a lot, I'll tell you that. There's a reason he's a full-time school teacher.
Mhm.
He does these events really just for the love of cycling and the fact that he's lived his whole life in Sonoma County and wants to share the routes with others. So
Well, again, thank you very much for putting up with our questioning you. I greatly appreciate it.
I don't see it as
Austin.
putting up, but we're trying to build community, and I apologize. We were not made aware by Sonoma County of these committees nor their process. And so we only found out about them sort of late in the application process, and would be more than happy to work with the groups to ensure these kinds of events are done in a responsible way.
Thank you.
Okay, Marty, I saw your hand up earlier. Do you
Yes,
still have a question?
yes,
ahead.
I do. Thank you, Austin, for joining us. And I have a clarification question about the routes.
Okay.
I live in the far northern part of Sonoma County around Sea Ranch and Annapolis.
Right.
And looking at the route descriptions in the documents that we received, it appears that on the longer route, the bicycles will come down Annapolis Road and then turn left on Highway 1 until they get to Cruise Road.
That's correct.
And on the shorter route, they'll come down Stewart's Point Road and turn left on Highway 1 to Cruise.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and it's hard to know right now what the total numbers would be, but a smaller portion of the total riders, my guess, will do the longer route just because it's much more hard. It's much more difficult. So there will be a split, 150, 200. We'll see what registration complete, but on the outside, maybe 225 do the longer route. That's a guess right now.
I am not a cyclist, I'm a swimmer, and it takes a lot longer to swim a distance than to ride a bicycle. So do you have any idea, or will you have, as this progresses, what time of day we would be likely to see cyclists going each of those segments?
Right.
The Annapolis Road to Cruise Ranch segment, and also the Stewart's Point Road to Cruise Ranch.
Yeah. Well, we're expecting riders to leave Duncan Mills between 9 and 10 o'clock. It's at their leisure after they get registered and suited up and whatnot. And so from that point to get all the way out to the far reaches, probably 2 hours to 2.5 hours for the faster riders. So assuming
11:30.
11, I mean, yeah, there's going to be
to 1:30.
I would say that's a good window
Okay.
frame. And then, like I said, we will have sweeps going, but it's going to be really interspersed. I mean, my experience with these kinds of rides, that's a getting up Kings Ridge is no small undertaking. And so that will thin out crowds pretty quickly. And then there'll be some number of people that are slower. So
Mhm.
it's just the way,
Okay.
nature of the beast. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Brian.
Right. Okay. I'm trying to see if I can see the, there we go. If anybody else from the public would like to have a comment, please raise your hand now. Okay, so Bonnie Plikos. Okay, Bonnie, go ahead. And I just unmuted you. Go ahead.
Yes, the addition of Annapolis Road is something new. I know that there have been a number of events on King Ridge and Stewart's Point and all that stuff. But I'm wondering how are you informing residents of the areas that this is going on? You know, I know there's going to be signage up on the day, but how are they going to know ahead of time? As far as I know, there has never been one of these events that went east on Stewart's Point, Skag Springs, and then took the entire loop of Annapolis Road. And I think it might be kind of a surprise to the residents out there. So I'd like to know.
Well, what we would propose to do, and I'd love to hear your suggestions, we would put signage out during the week before the event to say bicycle event this coming weekend, and say the date and then basically hours, and put those signs up on a couple poles so in noticeable places so that people coming from either direction would see that, and then be made aware, like, okay, on the 27th, there's going to be an event here between 11 and 2, something along those lines. Do you feel that that's sufficient to inform people?
If it was up for the week before and it was really clear what was going on, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Perhaps putting a notice in the local newspaper out here, which is the Independent Coast Observer that's published in Wallala.
Okay.
That pretty much everybody reads.
Okay. Yeah. We
Or
can do that.
yeah, or if you had flyers making that notice, there's not that many businesses out here, but there's a
Yeah, we could
couple.
put a one pager sort of on a bulletin board in a couple
Yeah,
few
but
spots.
if you have some flyers, like if we put it up at businesses that pretty much everybody goes through, like the local bakeries and the
Right.
and the hardware store and things like that, if we had those, I just really want people to be informed.
Yeah. No, that's helpful suggestion. I appreciate that. So, I mean, I know the bakeries like on Cazadero heading up to King Ridge. Are there specific others that are more on the coast that you would recommend? Or businesses?
I try and
Okay.
get a notice up at the Two Fish Bakery on
Two
Stewart's
Fish.
Point. I
Okay.
try and get a notice to Sea Ranch Supply, which is
Right.
the hardware store that's right. It's not on Sea Ranch, but it's really close to Sea Ranch,
Got it.
that everybody goes to. If you send me some, I can
Okay.
put them up at the fire stations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, great. If anyone has contact info they want to put in the chat box, I'm happy to send you some more info as we develop it.
Yeah, and I also just have a thought. I have read the whole, the original plan and the permit and the medical plan that you're going to have 2 BLS, basic life support units traveling with the pack, and having provided help on the Grand Fondo rides and things like that in the past, and maybe someone from Timber Cove might like to chime in on this. 2 might not be enough, and having them ride with the pack, they may end up like, are they going to be ahead? They may end up really far from where the incident occurs. So I just wanted to suggest, during the Grand Fondo and things like that, we really haven't had any incidents on Stewart's Point, Skag Springs Road, knockwood. But there's been a lot in Timber Cove, just because there are a few places where it's gravelly or there's a tricky turn. along Hauser Bridge and King Ridge and things like that. So you might talk to the Timber Cove Fire Department and find out where are the places that you really worry about, and just put a BLS unit there.
Yeah.
It just might help.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And part of our staff, in addition to the EMS in vehicles, we have 3 people on motorcycles that are moving or back and forth. And so they're all on radio. And so, you know, we just did our first event 3 weeks ago up out of Ukiah, and that system was used, and we only had one crash, someone that broke a collarbone. But that was the extent of the injuries, and that person was responded to like within 5 minutes of them going down, and did not have to be transported out. So we're feeling pretty good about the system that's in place. And of course, we're doing an event this weekend in Glenn County in Colusa. So if this event happens, it'll be the 3rd event of the season. And I feel like the team's working pretty well together and learning from the first 2 events of the year. So we'll apply everything to this event. And these are roads that Miguel rides very regularly. I mean, he lived in Occidental for many years, and I lived in Cazadero. And so this is sort of the backyard, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate those ideas. I've got the suggestions in the chat box here, and we'll definitely put some materials together to get out to folks well ahead, a couple weeks, 2 weeks, as I see the suggestion here. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. And if you talk to Timber Cove and find out where the bicyclists always
Yeah.
crash, and just make sure that at least one of your med units is not far away.
Yeah, that's
Then
sound advice.
Then I think you'll really be covered.
Okay, thank you. These are great suggestions. You all should be part of our operations team.
All right. So I see Madden. Is that, I mean, you may have been just from the previous. Do you have anything else?
Oh, there. Thank you. Thank you, Austin. I had a follow-up question to Bonnie's note on when you're going to let locals know. I live down near Myers Grade and Fort Ross Road, so there's no place, like there's no business you can put a sign up.
Right.
But it's really important when you do your signage that while I'm driving by, I can actually read it, so that it's not like a little tiny flyer and you know, I have to stop, and the date and the time and kind of the route, so I have an idea of where the riders will be on that day, and if I'm going to go out, I can, you know, adjust my time accordingly. The other question I have is from Wanda Swenson, and she was wondering if the county had plans to fill potholes prior to the ride, both for the safety of the cyclists and locals.
Not that I'm aware of, at least for this event. I wish they would do something like that, but they haven't told us anything about that. I mean, we'll pre-ride the route, and if there's something that's like really egregious, we'll use chalk to mark it, knowing that the chalk can wash away with water. But we have put little signs on little stakes on the side of the road with like 3 arrows down or an X to call out if there's some hazard, but we try not to use those because we have to pick them up. Or if in the worst case, if there was an area that was, you know, like obliterated road and people needed to slow down, we would put someone there to basically flag people to like, hey, okay, next section, slow it down, get through this safely, and then move on. But we have to go do the pre-ride. You know, we try to do that within a few days before the event, knowing that sometimes conditions change. And so we want to do as close as possible to the event.
It sounds like it's going to be a great thing. I really appreciate your making the effort and talking to us.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to? Bonnie, I still see your hand, but I think that's the last one. Anybody else on the the committee have any other final comments? Okay, well, Austin, I want to thank you very much for joining us for this. I know all of us and the community really appreciate your engagement on this subject.
Brian, my pleasure. And one ask I'd have of you all, there's been some great suggestions in the chat box, but it looks like I'm unable to copy the chat content. And so I'm wondering if you would share the chat dialogue or after the meeting tonight.
I will save it as a text file and email that to you.
That'd be fantastic. Much appreciate everyone, and thank you for your service to the community up there. It's a beautiful area, and we want to do everything we can to keep it that way and to keep it safe. So,
all right,
Thank you,
thank you very
Austin.
much, Austin.
I'll cut out here, and I'm gonna just write down this one email, and but you said you'd send me the text.
I will
so-
send you. I will send you the
Okay.
full
Okay.
chat. And
Very good.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
rest
you.
of your meeting.
Okay. All right. So the last subject we have is sort of a rediscussion of a matter that we discussed on our January meeting, which is the Sonoma County event permit system revisions. We do not have anybody from Permit Sonoma on this call, but we just wanted to allow the public to, in the land use committee, to make any additional suggestions, which we can forward on to Permit Sonoma. If there's anything else that folks would like to comment. I will add that before anything comes up from the to the actual board of supervisors, it will likely appear again at the planning commission. So if you would like to discuss the permitting event, special event permitting, please do keep an eye out at the planning commission on their regular meetings and their agendas to see any changes that may be coming on that. Obviously, they're working on those changes now, and we will do our best to publicize if there is a hearing at Planning Commission. But if we don't see it, you just keep checking the Planning Commission. So with that, is there anybody on the committee that would like to discuss anything with respect to that?
There in the, I saw a document from prior Coastal Commission memos. Are we going to talk about that?
Right. So there is, we did, which I don't believe it made it to the website, but there was a document that is publicly available. It was a document from, I believe, 1996, from the former executive director, the founding executive director of the Coastal Commission, about the special event permitting, that the coastal development permits for special events. And those had sort of has an outline of when the Coastal Commission will get involved. Because it was not actually in the materials, I don't know what ability we have to discuss it, but it is available publicly online. Beth, did you have any comments about that? I know you.
I do. So the Coastal Commission memo, it does give an outline into some differences between the need for a coastal permit, coastal development permit versus a ministerial permit. However, when you read the whole document, it makes it very clear that preserving the coast, our biohabitat, and the views and just the specialness that we have out here is what governs whether or not it's a ministerial permit versus a coastal development permit. And that's very, that's a very condensed description. Oh, good. You're able to bring it up. I'm glad to see that. I think I would like all of those that are participating in this, all of our attendees, to be able to get a copy of this and read it very thoroughly. It's enlightening. It's my understanding that this is, being looked at by PRMD, and I don't know to what depth they're going to look at it. I don't know if they're going to do anything with it. We need to encourage PRMD to not just think about the people applying for the permit, but the people that live in the area that have to deal with an event and what that entails. And we also need to encourage PRMD to be very, very specific with definitions. You know, what is an event? What are the different categories? It needs to be a very hard definition, not something vague.
Okay. And I'm, you know, for folks who were on the previous MAC meeting, the January, I want to say 22nd MAC meeting, there was a presentation by Bradley Dunn from Permit Sonoma, and who sort of outlined the possible changes. None of those have been formalized yet. So, but there was a presentation. I don't know if that was made available. Scott, do you know, or Marty, do you know if that presentation was made available?
I think the video is available on the District 5
Thank you.
webpage, YouTube page.
That is
but
a great point.
I haven't seen the slides available.
So that is a good point. So if you go into the onto there's a Sonoma District 5 YouTube, and you Google and you search for the January, I want to say 22nd meeting. The whole meeting will be up there, and you should be able to go through the presentation slides.
And it was January 20th.
20th. I apologize.
Yeah.
Now, Marty, did you have any other comment about that?
Yeah. I found,
You're muted, Marty.
Oh, you just got muted.
sorry, I found this document from the Coastal Commission very interesting. This was, unless I was asleep January 20th, this was not part of our packet for the January 20th MAC meeting.
No. So this is something that comes from the Coastal Commission, which
Right.
the coastal region in Sonoma, you know, as folks know, is basically our jurisdiction, right? So it goes at most a couple miles inland, but so this document didn't affect the other MAC presentation that they made in February. So this is only going to affect us,
Right.
because
But
the requirements of coastal.
it wasn't
It was
on
not. No.
in our MAC agenda materials.
Correct.
And it would be helpful for all of us, both the panelists and the attendees who are attending this meeting, if you could say where online one can find this document, instead of just saying, oh, you can find it online.
Yeah.
And then
so
people would have to first search 5 hours to find it.
yes. So what I will do is I will ask the folks in Supervisor Hopkins' office to put this document on our page, to put a link
That's
to this
great.
document.
Super.
So I will try to put a link in the chat if I can do that today. But if
Okay.
not, we'll try to put a link on the website.
Okay, thanks. And I would like to encourage everyone, if you are kind of late to the party on the local coastal plan rewrite, but if you have not read it, it would be useful for you to read the land use sections and accessibility sections of the local coastal plan. And I think those will be the topic of the discussion at the Planning Commission meeting, which I believe is on March 3rd.
March 3rd at 1 p.m. It's the
It's
Coastal
a Zoom
Commission,
meeting.
Coastal Commission LCP meeting. If you go to the Coastal Commission, I'm sorry, not Coastal Commission, Planning Commission, I apologize. If you go to
Right.
the Planning Commission website, you'll be able to find a link.
All right, Scott.
Perhaps because the public hasn't seen this document, we could agendize it at our regular MAC meeting and give people a chance to review it and maybe revisit it in conversation.
Okay, I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear from the public. I'd like
Yeah,
to hear what the public's thoughts
I
are.
am going to, let's see, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to manage all of these windows. Okay, I see one hand up in the participants. Okay, C. Higgins, I have, you should be able to unmute now.
Good evening, everyone. I am trying to do this Zoom by my phone, so I hope that you can all hear me. Am I audible?
Yes, sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, thank you, for all the time that you dedicate to the coast and to the community. And I hope that I can provide some information for you that is helpful and maybe possibly a suggestion as we look at events on the coast. Because what's important to understand when you're saying, oh, the Coastal Commission gets involved with a CDP. Actually, a CDP is a county process. So we have a local coastal program that includes a plan that's currently under update. And then we have a set of ordinances. So this whole memo that you are referring to has actually been codified in Sonoma County Ordinances, Chapter 26C, which states very clearly all of the different types of principally permitted uses in each of the zoned areas of the coast, which include all of the regulations around events and when an event requires a use permit. A use permit is a CDP. So I would say that if you are a part of this event process with the county, and for some reason they've chosen to combine inland and coastal, that you ask that not only are you exposed to this memo, but that the county reviews carefully with you Chapter 26C and all of the regulations around events. Because what we want to make sure of is that we don't actually support something that is less protective than what we already have. And through a CDP process, all of the things that the community is concerned about, notice, opportunity for public input, hearings, all of that is part of that CDP process. And when you look at an event that would have impacts towards public access or coastal resources would be considered development, and a development would require a use permit, which would require public notice, hearing, and comment. So not only is this memo significant, but our own coastal codes in Chapter 26C are something that, you might want to have the county and maybe Bradley, who I think also should familiarize himself with those codes, because it's not a ministerial process here on the coast. So we don't want to take what we have as protections and turn them into something ministerial. Now, maybe there's a way that we can improve those ordinances and those existing codes as we get to that part of the update in the LCP. And that would be a great opportunity to look at, how events are run at the coast. But I don't want us to inadvertently and unknowingly give up protections that currently exist. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that it's not about the Coastal Commission involvement. Of course, there's always the appeal to the Coastal Commission and areas of the coast, but we have a codified process on events at the coast in Chapter 26C.
Okay, and then if you wouldn't mind, if you could just write what it is in the code in the chat, that would be, I think, helpful for a few folks who are in the.
I'm not sure I could do that by my phone. So what?
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to switch windows. And I'm totally so amazed, Brian, that you're like coordinating this meeting, because that's a really difficult thing to do with all the windows open. And I'm sorry I can't do that, but I can send an email that sort of just gives the link to that particular
Perfect.
chapter. I mean, it's policy wonk kind of stuff, but it's something maybe you guys as part of this committee may want to be familiar with.
Yeah, if you just email that to me, we can always agendize it for our next MAC meeting too, along with this document.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for what you're doing.
All right, I see another hand up. Norma, you should be able to unmute now.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everyone for this opportunity. I just want to piggyback onto what was just stated. And I really want to be clear that there should be no change to the code to remove the requirement for a CDP events on the coast, and there absolutely should be no shift to make anything ministerial on the coast under the auspices of aligning it with processes and procedures inland. The whole reason that there is a requirement in the code for a CDP is because the coast is unique, and it is uniquely therefore mandated by that code that care be taken and processes be followed with public participation foremost in mind to retain that the unique character of the coast and not try to lump it in with inland processes and inland land use.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think. So thank you very much, Norma. I appreciate the comments. If I do not see anybody else, so unless somebody else on the committee has another comment, I believe we will move on to finish. I'm going to try to, I just found this code and I'm going to try to find it real quick on and put it in the chat here. I apologize for the on the fly copying and pasting, but I'm going to try to put this in the chat here. Let's see, chat. Okay, here we go. This is the section, the municipal code. It is a little dense, so, but it is in there, and then we can sort of discuss that. You can consider discussing that at our next MAC meeting. Okay, with that, I believe that wraps up our regular calendar items. Does anybody have any suggestions for our next meeting, which will be in April? But as always, feel free to email us. Our contact information is available on the Sonoma Coast MAC website. You can just Google Sonoma Coast MAC and you should be the first result. Feel free to email me or Marty, who is the chair of the MAC, for agenda items related to non-land use items. But seeing no other hands, I'm going to suggest see if we have a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second
Okay.
it.
All right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. I want to thank everybody for attending, and I really appreciate the conversation. And I will that will wrap up the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. Good meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.